The Government Employee Pension Fund is currently on track to meeting its goal of exporting 5% of its assets into non-listed assets on the African continent. The GEPF is South Africa's biggest investor with 500 billion rand housed in equity investments. So CNBC Africa spoke to Principal Executive Officer John Olifant in Cape Town earlier today.
The GEPF, by its nature, is a pension fund. We've got a long-term investment horizon. So we believe through our investment strategy, we'll be able to match, the existing liabilities with the opportunities that arise on the asset side on the continent. So currently, we've allocated about 5% of the overall portfolio, which comes to about 50 billion in terms of rents, and roughly we're looking at making sure that we deploy that in the long term. But in the short term, currently we've got roughly, our commitment is sitting at about 5 billion in terms of the opportunities that so far we have managed to explore. But I think we need to make sure that in the long term we are able to meet our targets.
Global pension funds underfunded as a whole, and a lot of them are changing tack and looking at an investment strategy in developing economies, Africa being quite prominent in this. Where does it put you, with this increase in demand for African assets?
I think it puts us in a very good space, because certainly I think most pension funds where they are, even though they present quite a large pool of assets, total assets of pension funds are sitting at 28 trillion. South Africa alone, it's only about 200 billion, and it's the largest market in Africa. So we think there's a lot of capital sitting outside the continent and looking for a new home. And GEPF obviously being the first one in exploring and actually deploying capital in taking advantage of these opportunities, that puts us in a very good space, because as this capital flow into the market, our markets are more likely to re-rate. 1, 2, we are more likely to have more exit opportunities where we want to bank our profits. So we're quite happy about the renewed appetite by other institutional investors elsewhere in the world.
Let's talk about the infrastructure investment possibilities in Africa. Half of all Africans are going to be living in urban cities in the foreseeable future, but the infrastructure that exists around those is very much lacking. Can you tell me where it puts you in terms of your investment strategy?
Yeah. Obviously, that's a good point, because people can talk about the consumer story, people talk about the emerging middle class, but at the end of the day, you would know, we've had a massive growth here in South Africa in terms of the middle class. And what are the things that middle class enjoy? They want cell phones, they want cars, they want beautiful houses, places to go for holidays, safe roads and all those things. And we believe that that will put a serious strain on the infrastructure if it's not expanded. And that's why we think infrastructure really present excellent investment opportunities, and that's why through our strategy we'll be looking at investments in economic infrastructure, in social infrastructure, in renewable energy projects, and obviously enterprise development to further support the growing middle class. So our strategy is significantly anchored around infrastructure.
Okay, final question. Socially sustainable investments. You've outlined it's a very important strategy for you. You also adopted the Global Real Estate Sustainability Benchmark last month. Can you talk me through the 4 pillars of your investment strategy when it comes to social sustainability?
Look, I think we need to divide the issues into 2. We have our developmental investment framework, which is aimed at making sure that we are able to achieve greater investment returns, and that 4-pillar strategy has a high social impact in it, and it's based on investments in economic infrastructure, investments in social infrastructure, investments in the renewable energy sector or renewable investments, and obviously investments in enterprise development and job creation. But in general, we also integrate environmental, social and governance issues in the overall portfolio, which is, to us, it's important as a long-term investor, especially if you are looking after the liabilities that have a duration of roughly 30 years. So it's important to ensure what you invest in, it's not about generating a quick profit, but it's about generating sustainable returns in the long term.